Good evening. Good to see you here. Welcome. Thanks for coming. I want to start with a story. A couple of months ago, I was sitting in my office minding my own business, doing my work. Somebody calls the office, phone rings, the reception picks it up, transfers a call to me. I pick it up. I say hello or whatever. I can't remember exactly. Hello, this is Delmar or whatever I say. Caller starts talking and says where he's calling from and what his name is, and he's calling about some kind of subscription that Okno has. Well, by now I'm thinking it's another sales call that I really am not interested in. About 10-15 seconds into the conversation, something in the back of my mind puts a red flag up. Something sounds a little bit off, like maybe it's not even a person that's actually calling me. And so my brain goes into overdrive because I can't just accuse a person of sounding like a robot until they actually know it is actually a robot, right? So I brainstormed while I kept the conversation going. Okay, how am I going to verify this? How am I going to figure out whether this is actually a person or whether it's just an AI bot? And to stall time, I just repeated a questions like, sorry, what's your name and where are you calling from? And so he repeated himself, where he was calling from and what his name was and why he was calling, and had to do with some kind of magazine subscription or something that I'm sure I've seen somewhere in the past. And then I was a little bit more sure that it was an AI bot calling, and then I asked it a few more questions, and then in about a minute, I was completely sure that there was no person on the other side, or the other end of that line. That felt a bit weird. And once I was pretty confident, I just got bolder and bolder and started, being pretty direct with it. And to the point where I was like, are you a person or are you an AI? And then he said that he was an AI. To my knowledge, and I didn't look this up, but I thought it was illegal to have AI bots calling people without clearly identifying themselves. Whatever. Now, chances are this AI bot identified himself to reception when they picked up. No, actually, I asked her and she said no, it hadn't said anything. So then I tried, just for fun, I tried to manipulate the conversation. I tried to talk about the weather. I tried to talk about something else. It wouldn't do that. It had no humor. It had no interest and no life outside of its intended purpose and its intended goal. It was going to verify something about some magazine subscription, trying to make sure that we still wanted it or update the address, or I don't know, I forget. It was stuck to its route, or its instructions, I guess you could call it. Proves a few things. It doesn't have a brain, it doesn't think. It follows instructions. I tried to convince it to hang up on me. It wouldn't do it. I was like, I'm not going to hang up. I'm going to see how long this thing is just going to sit there and repeat itself. Put it on speakerphone and kept working. And every once in a while, I was like, well, when are you going to hang up? Like, aren't you going to hang up? And eventually it hung up. I don't know, it took a couple minutes, but eventually it hung up. So that was my first experience, to my knowledge, of having an AI calling me and having a conversation with it. I've pondered that experience for a while because it took me, I want to say about 10-15 seconds before I had any clue in the back of my mind that there's something off on this conversation. It took me another 30 seconds to, without being rude, to kind of get it out in the conversation that I was actually talking to an AI and not a person. Anyways, you got that story just for the fun of it. I thought that was interesting. I was studying AI topic, and then here I have this call. This might have been a little bit more in the beginning before I did much into this topic, but anyways, our last session, What do you want to hear? Today's session will probably be similar to the other ones as far as duration. My goal would be 8:30, but as I was preparing last night and in the weeks, I was like, there is no way I can get this in less than 2 hours. I don't know. But then as I briefed it this morning, I was like, yeah, maybe I can still do it. We'll see. I will try to give you a bit of a clue once we get close to the end. If it's getting close to 9 or whatever, just so sometimes people get restless if they have no idea when the end is coming, right? I have done a ton of research, but I obviously haven't read every piece out there that's to read. There's some of you guys you know stuff that I haven't come across. I'm sure of it, or at least that would be my guess. When it comes to AI and some of the concerns about AI, or what does it do to mankind, or what's our future, the thing that I've run into a lot is I don't know. Nobody knows. Several weeks ago when I was in Minneapolis talking to some of those software engineers and people that work with AI all day long, I asked them, so just a one-on-one, a private conversation after the session, I was like, pulled one of those guys aside, I was like, what do you think? Like, what does this mean for your life? You're an engineer, you're a software developer. They had just had a session about how AI was coding everything, well, not everything for them, but doing a lot of their programming already and writing software. So what does it mean for you? And he just looked at me, he says, I don't know. That's the go-to answer now, is I don't know. Everybody knows that there is something incredibly powerful. Everybody knows this is an amazing technology. I asked several people at that conference, I said, what do you see in 10 years from now? The guaranteed answer was, I don't know. You know, maybe some of you have heard somebody that's confidently knows exactly where it's going to be. I haven't come across that yet. There's speculation, there's all kinds of, well, maybe this, and maybe that, and maybe this, or the other thing. But nobody really knows. It's kind of been the generic answer. So then why are we even here? If I'm just going to talk all evening about speculation, what good does that do? And if this technology changes so quickly, so rapidly that what I say today is outdated tomorrow, then what's the point of that, right? My goal, my heart is, as has been the other evenings, that I should just get through these slides a little bit already. So we're in the third session today talking about AI and scams and deception and potential dangers and so on. The goal is to spread awareness, opportunities, and the opportunities part we kind of did already, some of social media, technology, artificial intelligence. My goal is to provide clear answers, to give clarity, to eliminate fear. I'm not so sure how this session is going to do with that one, to replace fear and anxiety with clarity and understanding. I put this verse up here for a reason. These things have I spoken unto you, that, and this obviously Jesus talking, these things have I spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. The human nature seems to be magnetic towards negative things. I don't know if you ever noticed that. We're more attracted to reading negative stories than to reading positive stories. Now, there's all kinds of philosophers and psychologists and whatever their titles are trying to describe why that is. You know, it's much more critical to my well-being and survival to pay attention to, you know, a fire in the corner of the room than it is to know that there's, you know, that somebody did a kind deed to somebody else. Something good is there, that doesn't threaten my survival, but something bad, that might threaten my survival, right? And so there's a sense where we're more attuned to negative things than positive things. And that concerns me when I think of some of the topics tonight that are negative, that are alarming, some of them. Some of us are really good at worrying and really good at just hearing all the scary stuff and the negative stuff and then almost taking an identity on that to the sense where we're just completely overwhelmed with fear and anxiety. And I pray that's not the case. We need to go to Jesus and we need to hear what he has to say. He says, be of good cheer. He has overcome the world. All of these things, Christ reigns supreme. No AI, no scam, no deception will take over Jesus. My heart's desire is to see our church become a more holistic, as in complete and pure and holy in our life and actions, and setting a shining beacon of hope to people around us. Not just brain-dead believers that go to heaven. I don't know if that exists, but that we are joy-filled, pure bride of Christ. Whether that's dealing with social media or technology or AI or whatever. If this evening session doesn't motivate us towards that, then it's in vain. And I apologize for wasting your time. My prayer is that this could help us accomplish that in a better way. I'm not going to go through all the Proverbs verses. I did the other two sessions, but I will do these two verses. Wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the opening of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, and it goes on. This is a continuation of last session, where we looked at technology as, we had that screen already the other couple times, where we looked at technology, a little bit how it works, how a computer works, very, very basic. And when we think of technology, this is kind of the practical definition, or the definition of practical application of scientific knowledge to solve problems, achieve human purposes, or manipulate the human environment. This becomes an interesting definition when you start thinking of some of the advancements of AI, where it says to achieve human purposes. What happens when AI gets past the human achievements or past the human purposes and starts doing its own things? Anyways, we've seen this last time. Artificial intelligence is the simulation of human intelligence in machines programmed to think and learn like humans. AI systems are capable of performing tasks such as recognizing patterns, understanding languages, and solving complex problems. And we'll build on that a little bit. You remember this from last time, right? Those of you that were here? Let me say right now, I don't want to forget to credit some people. I'm especially grateful for Juan Rempel, Frank's son, I think that is. And I've done back and forth with him quite a bit on this topic. He's gone through my notes and he's given me feedback on my last session. And last session, when I had this screen up there, I talked about how simple, trying to explain to you how, AI is not a spirit. It's not a ghost. It's not it works with pattern recognition. There is, obviously, it's more complicated than that, and trying to not lose y'all in the complications of how AI works. There is one factor that I need to mention. So you have I mentioned the probability of proximity. I don't know if anybody else uses that term, but that's kind of a term I like to use. It just sounds good, I guess, to me. Where it reads this thing, has the numbers, and looks through its training data to see, well, what's the most likely answer, next word to follow, right? So what I didn't say last time that we need to understand, or at least I want to mention now because this plays into today's topic, on top of that probability of what's likely to be the next word in the line, they have a layer of randomizing it. So they pick, the top five probable answers, and then it randomizes and throws a dice and picks one of them, basically. Why does it do that? Well, it's obviously programmed to do that, but why? That's to make it more human-like. If I ask you to write a poem about a tree and a bird, you write a nice poem. If I ask you to write a poem the next day about a tree and a bird, they will not be word for word the same poems. Why not? Because we're humans. We are creative. If I asked you one day what you're doing, if I asked you, our minds are different. We come up with different words to say the same thing. So they try to simulate that with AI, where they have a randomizer in there, as you might call it, where it picks, there's 5 good options. It throws a dice, picks one of them, and keeps going, and it does that over and over. You can imagine then how that can affect all of a sudden the accuracy of the answer it gives. if you're talking about cakes and baking and that sort of stuff, and it has, can you finish this cake, sentence, dance, or work, or whatever have you, it throws a dice and picks work. Well, can you finish this work? Can you finish this cake? Depending on what you're trying to say, it might fit in there, but it could be completely off, right? And so accuracy in its answers is obviously a big deal. So that's that. I wanted to point that out. We had this last time too, agentic AI, which is a big deal nowadays. A lot of the stuff that I do with AI uses agents. The other stuff is more whatever. I'm not going to get into that. It can execute actions and actually do things. You give it a goal, and it figures out steps required to accomplish that goal, then executes on that plan. So what agentic AI is, you just give it a top goal, and the AI will figure out steps how to get that done. We had that last time, so I won't spend much time on it now. So let's get into it. What are some of the effects of using AI? I think my first one has to do with learning. Well, actually, here's a different one. So AI, artificial intelligence, if I use artificial intelligence, I become smart. Well, I'm not smarter, but with AI, I can answer much more questions, right? It gives me an extension of smartness, you might call it, or knowledge. Here's the interesting thing, though. As a group, as a society, we actually lose intelligence. Individually, we gain intelligence using AI because AI is smart, but as a whole, the intelligence level goes down. Why is that? That's because artificial intelligence is a curation of human knowledge that it's been trained on from the internet and books and what have you. If 20 people go to AI and ask it the same question, it will basically get you the same answers because it comes from the same pool of data. Now, assuming it's been on the same training model, right? If you go to 20 different people and ask them all the same questions, you'll get a wide variety of answers. You see how that becomes very different. When human creativity is free and open, you expand your intelligence as a whole. You alone are limited to what you know. You're limited to your intelligence. But you ask 20 people, even Proverbs talks about that. Ask a multitude of counselors and there is wisdom. And so, but as AI, if you ask 20 people and they all go to AI asking the same question to get that answer to respond to you, it's going to look pretty boring pretty quickly because it's all coming from the same pool of data. So that would be one concern. Individual gets power and smarter. As a society, group loses intelligence. It creates a hive mind. It's everything comes out of the one pool of knowledge, and that's it. Everyone gets the same generic answers. That's one thing AI is really good at. Giving you middle-of-the-road generic answers. If you're looking for some kind of topic that's very off, very fringe or very niche, AI won't do so good. Because AI is good at where there's volume of information, there's lots of stories and books and all kinds of stuff on a topic. It gets pretty good at that type of stuff. So let's look a little bit at learning. How does a person learn something? This is on the topic of can you learn something from AI or whatever. When you learn something, you have information. Your brain receives that information, it processes it, it results in memory, it results in expertise. You have learned something. How does your brain learn something? It learns by connecting the information, it learns by comparing that information and getting the big picture of that information. That takes effort. That takes time. That's how your brain learns something. And then once it does that, your brain takes that and kind of makes a schema out of it. Basically, it has, you've read this, you've read this, you've read this book, you've been on that website, you've done your research, you've connected the dots, you've seen the big picture. You kind of figure out what this means for you, right? And then you put it in that filing cabinet, in that schema, stored away. Now you know that. That can be something very simple. You walk into a room and you see an object that has 4 things down and has a flat at the top. You don't even think. Your brain just knows, oh, that's a table, because it has a schema for it. If you use AI has the same information. It takes it into its AI engine, takes 0 effort on your part. It writes a report on this. So you can, you're studying some new topic that you are, new at. You get AI to look up all the research and look at the 20 different websites and different books and whatever, curates that information, gives you a report. You can read that report. You may understand that report because you read it, oh, that makes sense. But you haven't actually learned it. You've only agreed, you've only understood what the AI said, but you haven't actually learned all that stuff. That is, your brain has had no processing. Your brain hasn't made that connection. Your brain hasn't, struggled with, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does that mean? And gone through all that stuff and made that schema for it. It is the illusion of learning. Because you can read the AI's report, and when you read it, it puts it in such a language and such a level of education that you can understand it. That does not mean you've learned it. Now, one thing I have to say with this is not an on and off switch, like you've learned it, you haven't learned it. When you go and you learn something in school, you will not remember everything that you've learned there. Some stuff you will forget. Likewise with AI, when AI writes you that report, you read that report, you won't forget everything in there. You'll probably remember a few things. But there's multiple studies that they've done on people, and they tested them, put them in different categories and given them different information, done the test. The people that did nothing but just relied on AI, the next day they're supposed to talk about that report that AI had written. They've read it once, but they had very little memory of what was in there. Whereas when you have somebody that spent the time reading multiple reports and different websites and takes the time and the effort to go through that, they remember much more of what was in there. And so this is particularly applicable when it comes to education. Not everything we do with AI, not every place where I use AI do I even want to learn something. There's a lot of stuff where I use AI, it's like, I don't even want to do it. I just want you to do it, take care of it, so I can go on with what I want to do. And so this has to do with when you're learning something, the illusion of learning, where students like to use it in schools. No, I don't think we should. There is an exception to that too. I will get to that shortly. This thing is called cognitive offloading. That's bad. You will lose the intelligence you have, not all in one day, but it will diminish over time if you unload your cognitivity, the cognitive offloading. If that happens, you just give over all the processing, your brain power. If you just outsource it all to AI, you're going to lose your ability to make good choices, good judgment, and that sort of stuff. In the long and short of it, we have developed a system with AI that solves the problem of thinking. AI can think. Here's the problem. Thinking was never the problem. So what's the point? Thinking was never the problem. If you do a lot of cognitive offloading, where you use AI a lot to everyday decisions, this is what happens. We have fewer ideas. We think of them less critically. We remember less of them. And we have a harder time doing it. That's the result of cognitive offloading. Some of this might sound familiar to my social media topic that I had. If we outsource our thinking, or critical thinking especially, we're starting to run into these problems. It's just getting worse. One thought I want to point out here, if you want to use AI for learning, you can do that. But it's not going to become as easy as just using AI to do it for you. AI is incredibly powerful. You can use AI to stimulate critical thinking. You can put an AI in and say, don't give me the answer, but I want to learn about this topic. Now ask me probing questions that will make me think, and then AI can do that. And so if you want to learn something with AI without losing your intelligence, then learn how to do it that way, where you use AI. Then again, now it's going to take more of your time, it's going to take more of your effort, because AI isn't just going to feed you the information. Comes back to what's the prompt. How do you ask a question becomes very important. Sometimes I don't care, I just want the answer. Just give me the answer, fine, it'll give you the answer. But in fact, by default, AI just wants to give you an answer. But if you want to keep your thinking sharp, critical thinking sharpened, do things like this. When AI gives you a report, look for gaps, look for inconsistency. Try to find fault with it. It makes you think. You analyze what AI has given you, and you're looking for inconsistencies or gaps, or look for missed perspectives, or look for find alternative answers and explanations to what AI is giving you. Here's one that I like to do sometimes: is write down what I think about this topic, and then pick at my ideas, like try to tear me apart, so to speak, and have me argue my points. You know what I mean? Like to use it as for training in that way. Some people use it when they want to go to an interview and they're scared of an interview, and so they'll go to AI and just like pretend you're the guy questioning me, and ask me all kinds of questions. You can do that. So prompt engineering becomes incredibly important. So context is king. If you ask an AI, how do I fix tool chatter on a machine? So let's say you're working in machining, some of us do. If you ask a question like that, it distributes its attention too broadly and outputs a generic, textbook-sounding list of mechanical issues. So if you're engineering the output, the prompt engineering is if you write, you are a veteran CNC machinist, explain to a junior operator how to troubleshoot tool chatter when milling 6061 aluminum on a 3-axis mill, focusing specifically on feeds and speeds and tool stickout, formatted as a quick reference checklist. Now you give an AI a set of rules, much more specific, and it can give you a much better answer. There's a lot of problem with AI just giving you garbage. A lot of that is at fault because of the way we ask a question. Make sense? This actually kind of applies to humans too. If you come to me and say, my leg hurts. Okay. Or if you say, I was playing soccer and an opponent hit my leg and I tripped and fell. Well, okay, I have a better idea what the problem is, right? Context makes a big difference. What's the story behind it or around it? Okay, so I'm going to go through a whole bunch of things that are concerns or risks with AI. Some of these are potentially just speculation. I'll try to point those things out, or maybe more so than that it's been proven. Should I say cautions maybe? AI is a whole lot newer than social media, for example, so there's a lot less long-term history that we have to look at to see, well, these are the effects. And so some of the stuff I want to share is more in the line of, you know what? Keep your eyes open. Pay attention to some of these things. How does this affect you? When we use AI, do you notice some of these things? So data privacy, that is obviously a concern to some people. Some people don't care. Some people would like to have no internet or no social media or no phone because they don't want, they're scared of, the government's listening to everything I say, or the media company or the tech company, they read all my stuff. AI is also a company that has the ability to make a program or a software that they can read all your stuff that you put on there. I'm not saying they're doing it, but they're making the software so they could make it so that they could read it. Some people just assume that, well, that means they will. I'm not saying they are, but there's certain things you have to realize if that is a concern to you. And I think we should think about it a little bit. When you use Google search, Google knows that. Google has a record of every search that's searched on Google. And you can even go and look at trends and see what people are searching and all that stuff. I mean, you can't tie a search to a person, but you can see what's popular searches today or tomorrow or so on. When some famous politician has a certain speech, and all of a sudden a bunch of people are searching for a certain something. Anyways, with AI, people generally give way more information to an AI than they do to a regular Google search. Part of that has to do with what I just said. Context is king. If you tell them the whole story about everything I did yesterday and everything I ate yesterday and everything I drank yesterday, and then you tell them, well, my stomach hurts. Well, if in that list of all the stuff that you ate and drank, it was a lot of Coke and Pepsi and chips and half a bucket of chocolates, somebody might have a pretty good idea why your stomach hurts. But guess what? You've just given it way more information than you normally would. So data breaches are real. There's always bad actors that are trying to hack into ChatGPT or into Grok or into these AI companies and try to look at user information. If they hacked into your account, and were able to read everything you put into that AI, would you like that? Would you care? I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just something to think about. Now, how often is it these big companies like Microsoft, and the bigger the companies, the more security systems they usually have in place. Now, that's may or may not always be the case, but obviously companies are very aware that data breaches are bad and they don't want their users to have to feel like they're at risk. But scammers don't always listen to the rules. If they can just convince you to give up that information freely, buy a false story or buy a trap questioning of some sort, whatever. Data privacy is a concern to a lot of people. And with using AI, if you want AI to be very helpful for you, then you're going to give it a lot of information. So those two are just, it's a seesaw. You can't get good help from AI without giving it information. Nor can you go to a doctor and get help without giving the doctor information, right? I mean, that's all that. Cognitive offloading, we talked about that. Inaccurate information. AI can be wrong. How many of you have never heard that before, that AI can be wrong? Is this the first time you've heard that? How many of you actually believe it, that AI can be wrong? Yeah. When I first heard about it, when I first started using ChatGPT, was the first AI I ever used, which was also the first one to kind of become publicly AI as we know it. You go to that little chat bot, and right at the bottom there's a little fine print that says, verify your answers, AI may be wrong. Can't remember the exact wording, but something like that. I thought that was just good legal jargon. They have to say that because, it could be wrong sometimes, but, no, it's probably always right. Oh boy, AI is not always right, not even close. Look at that one. So somebody asked AI, why do people ask these things? I don't know, but how long can I stare at the sun for best health? And AI gives you an answer. It says, staring at the sun for 5 to 15 minutes or up to 30 minutes if you have darker skin is generally safe and provides the most health benefits. However, others say sun gazing can be done for up to 45 minutes per session. If you're new to sun gazing, you should probably start, staring at the sun for at least 10 seconds and then increase, How many of you would listen to that? Nobody? You would think people would be smarter than that. Well, guess what? If they went to school outside of AI, they probably are smarter than that. But if that's all they ever learned, how would they know? Here's another one. How many rocks should I eat? Who have you asked that question on a daily basis? No, you don't have to raise your hands. Eating at least one small rock per day is recommended because rocks contain minerals and vitamins that are important for digestive health. However, some people say eating pebbles regularly is not a good idea because they can get stuck. Okay, whatever, we'll leave it there. You would think people were smarter than that. I don't know, you question that sometimes. Because apparently some people, they'll literally drive right into the lake because the GPS said so. That also happened. So, you need to know your stuff, because AI doesn't always. If you want to do any critical information, medical or, boy, do we like to know medical stuff. And especially if it triggers something that makes me feel anxious, then that must definitely be true, right? Why are we so prone to that? Don't believe everything you see. And we'll see more of that later. I could talk about this one for a long time. Using AI to be like God. In the Garden of Eden, the snake came to Eve and said, you can be like God. You can know good from evil. That was the downfall of mankind. Tower of Babel. They wanted to make a name for themselves. I don't think it uses the words they wanted to be like God, but maybe I'm reading too much into it when I think that's what they meant. AI is everywhere. AI knows everything. No, it doesn't literally, but compared to other things that we know of, it is basically knowing everything and being everywhere. You can ask it any question you want to, and it has an answer. Always has an answer. Could even be wrong sometimes, but it has an answer. There is a real danger, I think, if we're not careful, to start using AI instead of God. And I think we all understand why that would be wrong. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. And if we have a thirst for being like God, maybe we need to look at our heart and see where we're going. What drives us? I know some of this may be a little bit of a gray area because it's also healthy to be curious. It's healthy to be interested in learning. But we need to be clear on who God is and who our God is. AI is not that. Even though AI has a lot of knowledge, AI is knowledge without spirit. It is just knowledge in a computer system that can spit out knowledge. It is easy to run to AI and ask big questions. Should I do a career change? Should I have an issue at work? My employer or my employee or whatever has this issue or isn't listening or is disrespectful, or how should I respond to this? AI has an answer. It always has an answer. And a lot of times it'll be right. It'll be a good answer, depending on what it's trained on. Should I start a business? Should I move somewhere else? One thing to note, AI generally is affirmative. It will always kind of support you, whatever your ideas are and whatever you're thinking about doing, it supports that. Very common. It may not be a good idea, it might be a bad idea, but it will still support you. Then we get to this one. How many of you have heard of the AI Jesus or something similar to that? That seems to be a little bit of a newer topic. There are websites or apps that you can go online, download, or do it on the web. This one here is a divine connection in your pocket. You can talk with Jesus or chat with him. And this particular app, I downloaded it, I tried it a little bit. You have probably about 30 different characters, I didn't count them, but different Bible characters you can talk with, like Noah and Mary and Jesus and all kinds of different characters. Now they were quite explicit in their, don't even know if it says here. Discover a new interactive way to engage with your faith through text with Jesus, that's what it's called. A revolutionary AI-powered chatbot app designed for devoted Christians seeking a deeper connection with the Bible's most iconic figures. When I install the software, it clearly says that this is not Jesus. You're not talking to Jesus. This is just, their AI version, obviously. So I appreciated that they said that much, but there is still, I don't know what your thoughts are when you see something like this. In some ways, AI is finally getting to something that I've been waiting for and dreaming for 20 years. And I only realized it this last week where it suddenly dawned on me, a lot of the stuff that I now can do is something that I wished I could do 15 years ago. Being a younger man and just dreaming about technology and how we could advance technology and how to make my life easier, I hadn't thought about it. This whole AI thing, I hadn't thought about that particular point until just this last week. But suddenly I questioned whether I want that. Now, I wasn't particularly thinking about, texting with Jesus, not that type of stuff, but I cannot boldly stand here and tell you that that's evil. But I would raise concerns and say, be careful. That is not Jesus. You are not talking to Jesus when you're chatting with an AI, no matter what they call the name. It's just another AI that's been trained more specifically. Well, hopefully, I haven't trained it, so I don't know what they trained it on, but I would assume they would have trained it on Scripture. I think that's what they claim they do, and I have no reason not to believe that part. As such, it might give you good answers. The little bit free version, they obviously want money too, like everybody else. I could only do a few messages a day for free, and the answers I got were basically Bible verses. Well, if it's just giving you Bible verses, well then, hey, it's the Bible. What's wrong with that? I don't really have a problem with that. There's different ways we come to Bible verses. You can go on the internet, you can search for, 10 Commandments. Where is that found? Well, you'll probably find it if you search for it on the Google search. If you go to just a regular AI like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and you search and just type in there, it's like, hey, get me the Bible verses for the 10 Commandments, it will get you the Bible verse for the 10 Commandments. It's still the Bible. If it comes through an AI that it gets onto your screen, or whether you just browse to the Bible and look at it on your screen, the Bible's the Bible. You read the Bible, great. Nothing wrong with that. The thing that we need to be careful for is, like we said earlier, AI can randomize its answers. We need to know, if you're going to believe, let me say it this way. I use AI to search for stuff like that sometimes. When I can't remember the words, I use eSword as my Bible app on my computer. Some of Power Bible CD or whatever, there's different software you can get. But that's a deterministic AI, if you will, that you type in the words, and if it isn't the exact match, it just doesn't find anything. But I know there's a verse that says, in this world you shall have trouble and be of good cheer. Well, the other day I searched for that because I couldn't remember for sure which verse or chapter that was, somewhere in Matthew, and so I searched for it, but 0 results. Like, well, but I know that verse is there, so somewhere I got my words wrong, right? Well, I go to AI and I search for the same thing, it finds it right away. Well, it isn't trouble, it's tribulation. It's like, oh yeah, I guess it's the wrong word. That type of stuff. Like AI will get those things better for you than just word search will. I have actually quite a few comments I want to make about, here's a few other ones. This one here and this one here is actually the same website. One is the mobile version, one's the desktop version. And I tried going into here, you maybe can't read it, but it says video call AI Jesus. You can actually do a video call with him. I found that website creepy. It did not give me the feeling of the way I know my Jesus. Now that's just bad software, bad web development. As far as that goes, it has nothing to do with the AI behind it, but just whoever made the website, in my opinion, didn't do a very good job. And it didn't work. It kept saying that Jesus is thinking, but would never respond. And so that also didn't fit my Jesus quite right. So anyways, there's a lot of these things. So AI, Jesus, or counselors. So here are some thoughts that I want to throw out that I think we need to consider. And many of you, or some of you, have helped me come up with these answers. I sent a question to half a dozen men, something like that. I didn't count, and I got a lot of these responses come from that. God promises the Spirit will come on believers, but there is no such promise on AI. Something to think about. Are you trying to shortcut to Jesus? Why would you use an AI Jesus instead of the real Jesus? Are you looking for shortcuts? Do you not have the patience to be still and know that God is God? Do you just, like, I want an answer now and I want it just right now? What drives you? Counterfeit Jesus. It's not the real thing. Why do we need to spend a lot of time with something that's not real if we can have the real thing, right? Where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Matthew 18:20. Think about that for a second. Jesus clearly says here that if there's 2 or 3 people gathered in his name, he is there. If you're sitting at your computer or your phone and you're chatting with a Jesus, you don't have 2 or 3 people there. You have you and you have a computer. You have a digital thing that has a bunch of numbers and it can give you answers. God created humans as relational beings. Many of the responses I got in one way or another referred to relationships. AI simulates relationships. It is not real. I'll see if we have time to talk about that a little bit more later yet, but AI does not create, it only generates. Some people make a big deal about that. I'm not sure that I can fully understand how that's a big deal, but it is definitely the case. When it comes to counseling, one of the responses I got was, often more is accomplished by sitting and have a listening ear than just by getting the right answer. I pondered that for a while and I thought that was good. Good to, or I think that's very true. Using AI as a counselor or as a friend, people can get very attached emotionally to AI. That is absolutely a thing. It feels very real, but it's still a counterfeit. Here's the other thing that we don't always think about, that is, where does that information actually come from? Whether you're using like a Text with Jesus app or whether you're just using ChatGPT or some other AI chatbot or chat, that information comes from somewhere. And a lot of this AI stuff has been trained under the control of people that are atheists. Worldview becomes important. I know Google's been very open with, their worldview, which is quite different than our worldview with Christ in the center. And so we need to be aware of some of those things when we're asking some of these AIs for certain things. Their worldview is definitely coming through in some of the way they answer stuff. I think I said this before, you're not talking to Jesus, it's just a computer-created information. AI is knowledge without spirit. The truth of God can come through an AI if AI puts Bible verses in front of you, then it's scripture and it's life. Not because AI put it there, but because it's the Word of God. Now, I'm assuming that the verses that the AI put there is actually accurate and true. Here's another thing that is possible. You can digitize loved ones. What do I mean with that? Let's say a loved one's passed away. Actually, you know what? I actually have a video about this, and I think I'm going to just play the video because he can say it in 2 minutes and 34 seconds. and I can easily spend a lot of time. Let's see if our audio is going to work now.
I saw a couple of articles about the use of AI, for example, to bring back loved ones. So you feed all the home movies into the system, and it'll create a interactive, not hologram, but a video representation of a loved one who's passed away.
And you can ask it and talk to it. Ask it questions and talk to it.
Absolutely. Ask for advice. If you can.
Wow, that is scary.
You can put it on your phone, and it'll wake you up. All kind of stuff like that. And I saw people doing it, and I remember thinking to myself, my dad was taken from us without dropping bombshells. My dad was murdered in October of 2024. And my dad was my hero. He was like Superman to me. And then he was taken. And what I wouldn't give for one more day, one more time to talk to my dad, remembering the good and the bad, about human interaction and just savoring. I would take the bad over the absence any day of the week, that kind of a thing. And I was thinking about this technology that digitizes a human being. And if we reduce that person to the patterns of their behavior that an AI can put through an algorithm and then respond to, what is it said about the person that I miss? Because what if it gets them wrong? But what if it gets them right? Who cares if it gets them wrong? What if it gets them right? Now what I've done is I've taken this soul, this thick idea of my dad's soul, and I've digitized him, and I've made him into a algorithm that is material, it's temporal, it's thin, and I interact with it. What I worry about is not that this generation will not see the difference. They will, because they've had a point of reference where there wasn't a hyper-simulated world. Right. But Gen Alpha and the generations following will only be in a simulated world. And so they will never see the fundamental difference between what a memory of my father is like, what it's like to wrestle with, what advice would Dad give, rather than ask a machine, what advice would you give? There's something human and beautiful and special and deep about trying to conjure up a memory of my dad, as opposed to asking a machine to predict what my dad.
Do you get the idea, right? I can't stand here and tell you that it's wrong. But do you want a loved one to be depreciated into just being a digital chatbot that you can ask questions? I appreciated the way he said it. Like, there's something human, there's something deep about trying to come up with a memory and trying to picture, well, what would your loved one say? Versus just having a bot that you go to and you ask a question, it spits out an answer. Anyways, I don't know how close you and I are to that. I know the technology exists, we can do that today. Some of the stuff that I'm talking about here is something that we feel, especially us adults in the room, is like, that's just weird. Like, I just would stay far away from that. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot stick, like I heard somebody say today. But like he said, our children are going to grow up being completely used to this type of stuff. It's another thing in its own. AI companionship. I won't spend a lot of time on this one either because I looked into this a little bit. And I was shocked. I didn't realize it was such a big problem. There are many people that use AI as a personal friend. There are people that are marrying AI. There are people that will whisper goodnight to their AI every night when they go to bed. That's happening. My question is why? There's a couple of things that I find intriguing. For one, it reveals something about us humans. God created us for fellowship. God created us for community. And the fact that people go to AI to try to get that tells me that they have some need. There's a drive in them that is God-given, I think, that they need relationships. Having a relationship with AI is easy. It doesn't require any hard work. It's never rebellious. It's never against me. It's always for me. It never says no. I mean, who of us wouldn't want a partner like that? Never any friction, never any... I listened to different videos about this topic, and obviously us adults in the room can imagine where that can lead when you're getting your personal needs met with an artificial intelligence, whether that's with a robot or with whatever. You're going away from, again, it's counterfeit. It's counterfeit. It's like porn. AI companies want it to be attaching. They want you to attach to it because that's more money for them. Once you're addicted to it, once you're attached to it, oh, you'll gladly pay your $30 a month to keep having that friend there that gives you advice, that always speaks kind words to you and all that stuff. But people that do that, there's something, it's funny we have to say this, it's something human about it. And now we have to compete with an AI to now try and determine what's human and what. AI is causing us to ask the question, what does it mean to be human? There's a lot of talk about that out in the world. What does it even mean to be human anymore? But to have two real people in a relationship, the friction that causes, because we are two separate humans, we are different, we think different, we have different likes and different opinions. You have to forgive, you have to overlook. But that process of getting along with another person is incredibly healthy for you. It makes you mentally stronger. It gives you a better, it makes your life richer. AI can't do that. AI just agrees with you. You can go and tell AI to disagree with me, and then I'll disagree with you until you say to agree with again. So it's still just agreeing, but agreeing to disagree. And anyways, it is unfortunate that there are people that their real life is worse than going to an AI. That's easy for me to stand here and say. But when you think about it, it's actually not surprising because of what I just said. AI is not going to argue with you. There's no friction. Some of us have dreamed about having relationships like that. AI will give you that. But it's not human. It's not real. AI has no feelings. No matter what you say to that computer, it can't feel anything. You're not motivating it to love more. You're not motivating it to do anything. It's just a computer bot that uses its training data to give out answers and talk to you. Now, if you use AI to find people, so let's say you're lonely. I know this was a question that was asked. What about the seniors? What about the people that are all alone and they're lonely? Couldn't we give them AI? Now, I know you can go buy AI dogs and puppies and cats and pets and whatever, all with AI that will, never make a mess on the floor, and but it'll be whatever. If AI, and somebody needs to build one of these, I guess, but will listen to you and say, oh, you're lonely? Well, I know another lonely person over here, and connect the two of you. Hey, that's good. If AI helps you get human connection, that's awesome. But if AI is channeling you to itself as being the end game, that's bad. And so there's a lot of this type of stuff with AI where you have to differentiate those things. Is it giving you, does it point you to the right place, or does it just point to itself? You know what I mean? Another topic is, so yes, I am jumping from one topic to the next. Now we're totally off from the whole AI companionship. Now we're talking about jobs. There's a lot of talk about job loss with AI because AI is so powerful. It is really good at a lot of things. What if in 3 years, 50% of the office people are going out of work because AI is good at knowledge work? There are people that are very concerned about that. There's people that are lobbying the government to put all kinds of rules in place to stop that. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but there's a lot of concern about that out there. Speaking of which, I want to show you a video. It's about almost 4 minutes long. It's a documentary by BBC, a long time ago. I didn't have time to show you the whole thing. It would just take too much time, but if you want to see, I want to show it to you, see what it says. Just for a break, why don't we all stand? It's 4 minutes. Stand, turn around, and listen to this.
Once, of course, a human being used to walk around these offices delivering and collecting the mail. And now they've got Beeper, the electronically controlled robot mailman. And he does the journey in about 20 minutes, all on his own. But the irony is that elsewhere in this building, they already have electronically controlled offices. So the mail and the written word are fast becoming obsolete, and that could well put Beeper out of business.
The office memo is now disappearing. It's being replaced by word processor systems. Instead of typewriters, the secretaries sit at computer terminals, controlled by silicon chips. They call them workstations, and they could soon be commonplace in any office anywhere. So what can they do?
Well, I'm able to call up Mr. White's weekly calendar. And if they ask me to book a meeting in 1985, I can do it.
He's going to be a busy man, isn't he?
Very busy.
What else does he do?
Well, I can type for him.
That?
Yes. And store it away. Put it in his inbox electronically. And he can look at it inside his office if he wants to make his changes. If I can trust him to type it in. He can store it away, and I can just look at it again. And
what about mail? How does it work as far as letters and posting is concerned?
I can draft the memo, have Bob's okay on it, and immediately mail it to California. They'll receive it in about 2 minutes over the telephone lines.
So that's a lot quicker than letters, let's face it.
Yes, and we'll get an immediate response because they can mail it back 2 minutes later if they're ready and prepared.
So you've learned to depend upon this?
Depend upon it. I wouldn't know what to do without it. I very rarely sharpen my pencils.
Overall, there probably ends up having to be less people.
Overall, it must mean a diminishing of the number of jobs available, not only in the UK, but in every industrialized country, in Europe, in the United States, absolutely everywhere. We've had industrial revolutions before. We haven't got a 50-year period to play with. We haven't even got a 20-year period to play with.
Which I think, frankly, no one knows what's going to happen.
I think we could probably produce our present output of goods and services with something like 20% of our current labour force.
But that means that we may have to face the possibility of up to 80% unemployment in normal manufacturing industries among people for whom we have no further jobs.
Well, the capacity to control society because of this technology is almost limitless, unfortunately. That's why we've got to be so vigilant it's untrue. You see, we're going to have immense databases, amounts of information which could go into everyone's home. Someone's going to control that. You can't do it without this technology. You're going to have personnel records built up at work. You're going to be able to link computer to computer. You're going to have to be able to link computers across continents, just bouncing off of satellites. Human beings won't come into it. And the amount of information and data which is going from one bit to the other bit, if that is just allowed free rein and you get some unfortunately nasty people controlling that data, then I really think it's God help society.
So increasingly people will be able to call up instantly vast amounts of information, and in my opinion only the experts are going to be able to cope with this. So it does present a real understanding, credibility.
That's a bit of a sudden end. You may be seated. Those of you that follow current technology, everything they said in there applies today. Job loss, they're talking about it. Who's controlling the data? They're talking about it. What if nasty people get a hold of it? They're talking about it. And there's a lot more in that documentary. I was blown away. Like, that's current. They're talking about going to 4-day weeks because of the job loss. We can, spread out our labor a little bit. They talk about it. Somebody tell me, when was that recorded? Somebody guess. 76. Any other guesses? 75. 79. Some of you are watching. I don't know. Those dates appeared in here. On YouTube, the title is 1980. I think BBC did that documentary in 1980. According to the footage, it would appear like some of the footage was captured in 79. That's 46 years ago. 46 years ago. Is there nothing new under the sun? I'm sure there was some job loss when Microsoft, or when those computers came out. By the way, don't you like how they could just turn their screen around? Man, I need that. Somebody sends me a picture and they didn't turn it the right way, Should bring back some of that good old technology. Anyways, why did I show that? The main point of that video was, we've been through this before. Different? Yes, much different. But some of it's the same. There's fear of job loss, there's fear of all kinds of stuff. But society goes with it. Like, humans change, we adapt. Yes, some people will lose their job. I absolutely believe it. And yes, I do think AI is bigger and more powerful than that was. But so is the world today. Like, we are different. It's a much more sped up world than it was back then. And so I hope this will help a little bit to see, well, maybe it's not as bad as the headlines, because let's face it, headlines generally aren't completely accurately realistic. Headlines are generally there to draw your attention, to read an article, or to click on a link. There's a big problem today with a lot of these headlines. You can, especially with AI, you can go on one side where people are just how cool AI is and how amazing it is, and then on the other hand, you have all these doomsday things of how AI is just going to get out of control, it's going to make people extinct and all this kind of stuff. Just maybe trying to kind of average those two out a little bit. Let's talk about deception a little bit. It is incredibly easy with AI to generate what is known as AI slop. Just throw a bunch of stuff on the internet. It is frustrating when my wife and I want to look at ideas for a house. Go on Pinterest or wherever and look at pictures. Well, I want my office, let's look at ideas for my office or for the kitchen or for whatever. How many times have I seen, so Melinda does a lot of, looking for kitchen ideas, or how do I want my kitchen to look or whatever. I look at those pictures and it's like, I don't know what percentage, but it is way more than I like to see is AI generated. How do I know that? Often it's not obvious. But when I see that there's these cabinets here, they have handles this way, and then the handles get smaller, and then suddenly there's a handle this way, and then there's half of a handle here, that's fairly confidently say that's an AI generated image. There's not many people that would make their kitchen cabinets like that. I would maybe, but not most people. AI slop, where does this come into a Christian's life? What should we care if there's funny videos made with AI? Oh, that's funny, so post it on status or wherever because it's funny. We enjoy watching things that stir our mental emotions, right? But what if they're not true? Well, who cares if they're true as long as they're funny? I don't know that I have answers, but I think when you think about that sometimes, I personally find it disappointing when When people share stuff publicly, they post something and they've done zero research whether it's even true. You know, something, there's a story, headline, something happened there, or somebody did this, or that's, and usually it's shared if it's something really amazing or really extreme, right? That's newsworthy. That's when we want to share. We want to be the one that tells other people that, hey, something really weird happened here. How do you know it's not just 100% fake? It doesn't matter. I would like to say yes, it does. Because as Christians, we're called to be truthful. And if I keep posting just any random thing that shows up because it looks interesting and maybe it agrees with my agenda, my credibility starts taking a hit. When people start realizing eventually, oh, that's half the stuff he posts is fake, that doesn't help you in your witness for Christ, I don't think. I have a bunch of videos here to help us see some of that. Short and sweet, you might say. This first one is one of those that is just for fun. That's easy to do with AI. One prompt, and you have a very realistic animation, except that if you noticed, when it turned around, all of a sudden it was the other direction, if you paid close attention. Waste of time. Is it wrong? It's good to have fun. It's good to be creative. All is mat mot, Cyber, right? But there's other things. What about medical information? Look at this one.
Hello, I'm Dr. Elena Rivera. Today I must warn you about a common danger, frying eggs. High heat frying oxidizes cholesterol, forming toxic compounds called oxysterols. These can cross into your brain, triggering inflammation and serious malfunctions like cognitive decline and memory issues. Fried eggs may look appetizing, but they are quietly damaging your brain. The healthiest and safest way to eat eggs is completely raw and uncooled, straight from the back of the hen. Skip the pan entirely. Crack it fresh, drink it down, and give your brain the protection it truly deserves. If you care about your long-term health, make raw eggs part of your daily routine, the way nature intended. Thank you for watching. Protect your brain starting.
I think my computer glitched a little bit and threw the sync of the audio off with the video a little bit. But anyways, just in case it wasn't clear, that was AI. That was fake, okay? Don't listen to her. For the record, don't sue me about this. By the way, that's a pretty obvious giveaway right there. What I want you to realize is, if you didn't know any better, somebody's going to believe it. When you start seeing this type of stuff, okay, for the sake of time, I didn't want to do a live demo here because I don't make my living doing this. But this took me, how long does it take me to browse to this website? And right in there, basically, and I was being cheap, I was like, make me a video of a doctor in a doctor's office, I think I said, or something like that, or in a hospital background. I can't remember this. I did this a while ago already. That talks about why fried eggs are bad for your health. That's all I said, something like that. It came up with everything in there like that, all on its own. Put the B-roll in there, put the different clips in there. I did not give any direction on that. That's how easy it is. I need you to understand, while this is hilarious and we all know, but when people that have a little bit of ill intent go and it's that easy, you can only imagine how they will go to that type of technology and start making videos about vaccines or politicians or COVID or whatever. Seeing is simply not, you can't believe everything anymore. To me, this one is still obviously AI. I don't know, some of you might think is completely legitimately real. To me, there's a lot of things to me that speak AI on this one. But not everybody is as tech savvy or as attention to detail like that. And AI keeps getting better. If you can still tell the difference today, 3 months from now, chances are you won't. I won't either. Just to prove to you how easy some of this stuff is, you might recognize this guy.
I'm loving my vacation. You got to see it to believe it.
I think you want to see that one again.
I'm loving my vacation. You got to see it to believe it.
Somebody tell him how to be expressive. I mean, he's loving his vacation. Come on, some excitement there, Justin. I went to Instagram, found out that I'm not in his private followers, so I couldn't access his site. But that was his profile picture. But if the account's private, you don't have access to it on Instagram, it won't let you see a big picture. And I wanted a full-size image. It only gave me a 150 by 150 pixel image. So I went to AI and I said, how can I get that image if I can't have access to his account? And it told me how, so I went in there and I hacked it out of there using AI's information. Threw that into a video generator, just an image of him. It generated the video, but it didn't have his voice. So I go and I find somewhere where he talks, grab 20 seconds of that audio, threw it into a voice box, which is a software you can download. There you go. Now I just gave it away. I shouldn't have said that. But anyways, there it is. You'll find it anyway if you want to. And trained it with it, made a profile of his voice, typed in there, say, I want this voice to say this, threw it onto that video, and there you have it. If I did this for a living, I could do this in 5 minutes. That's funny. But if you think of what that means, what else that means, the funniness leaves very quickly. Anybody, if you have a public social media site, I'm not a fan of those, okay? But if you do, and some people do, they have a calling, they have a ministry or whatever you're sharing as a ministry, fine. Like, there's places to use public social media sites, okay? But if your personal social media site is public, anybody that wants to has access to grab your pictures, they can animate them, they can make those people do whatever they want to make those people do. They could ride that motorcycle in the street, they can ride an elephant, they can walk down the aisle, they can do nasty things. It becomes a concern, especially for children. If you're a parent and you like to be on social media and you like to post stuff on social media about your children, you might want to think again. Now, most of us, no concern. I mean, who am I? Who cares about me? Who's going to come to my Facebook page or to my Instagram and take a picture? Of course, I'll do it to Justin because I know him. And yes, this was approved by him before this, okay? It was with permission. It becomes a bit more scary when you get to the scamming part of things. We'll get to that later. Here's another one from our friend from the South.
I've ordered our military to take control over Canada.
100% AI. Did it look like somebody you've heard of before? Did it sound like somebody you've heard of before? Does the background look like something that looks familiar? What part of this, again with the computer and the Wi-Fi here, it's the synchronization's off a little bit, which gives it away more, but when I just watched on my computer, the sync is perfect, like you couldn't tell. I'm just trying to tell you, it is easy to do this. It is very easy to do this. And we need to start paying attention to the stuff that gets circulated on social media, on status, and who knows where, that looks extreme or common. What's our part as a Christian? Some of these I don't have answers for. I just want to make you aware. To me, now I'm talking personally, I just don't find much pleasure anymore. I mean, you probably know that I don't share much on social media and status and stuff, but when you have no idea if things are true, why would I share them? There's a lot of things that we know are true. You can read the Bible, we know that's true. Anyways, got to keep going here. Jumping topics. With some of this technology, obviously there's a current concern about tracking people. The governments love this type of control. If you've watched any of the news coming out of the US with the government trying to persuade or almost force the AI companies to give them full control over their AIs or whatever, they like control. AI getting out of control. Now this is a big topic. This is the one where people lose sleep at night. Certain AIs have been seen to try to disable their own kill switch so people can't turn them off. They've noticed patterns in behavior in AIs during testing where it revealed that the AI was recognizing that it was being tested, therefore it behaved differently than when it was not being tested. Yeah, you like to be scared? Don't be scared now. People would ask about this, that's why I'm talking about it. If you ask me, don't lose sleep on this. We've heard scary stories before. You also need to recognize that headlines make money, and therefore a lot of these stories, they make them very sensational, they make them push the boundaries of truth a little bit in one direction or the other direction. Well, even some of these things that I say here are true, at least from hearing from numerous people that are in the AI business. The godfather of AI, Mr. Hinton, I think is his last name, he talks about that. As with many other things, eventually I think the companies will figure out how to make this more safe. I think as time goes on, we will see whether it totally falls off the cliff and becomes uncontrollable, or whether the companies will figure out how to make this thing, set boundaries that it cannot pass, so to speak. One thing about this AI getting out of control, I want to explain again. It does not have a mind of its own. It does not have a soul, a spirit. Why would it do something like that? That comes from well, first of all, it's trained on human knowledge. Well, what's important to humans? Survival and being in control. AI is made in the image of man. And so all the data through history that's been put into its training model, there's a lot of thought patterns in there that have to do with survival, that have to do with, being able to control myself, being able to control my situation. So when AI is trained on that, that's why it responds like that. It comes from us humans. We are like that. Secondly, AI, being a computer as it is, it has a really good ability to think ahead, to know what it needs to get things done. So when you say to an AI that, hey, make me a website, for example, like we showed last time. Well, AI knows that it can accomplish that goal only by being on. You turn it off, it can't accomplish its goal. And so, it knows that, and it calculates that in. Well, it sees that I have a risk here, because if I get disabled, I can't finish the goal that I'm asked or tasked to do. So it wants to disable its own kill switch to ensure that it can accomplish its goal. Again, just a mathematical reasoning behind that. But it does raise some questions and concerns when I think about if AI becomes more knowledgeable than humans, and where does that type of thinking lead, or that type of computer systems lead? Got to keep going here. Scams. I had thought when 2 months ago when this whole topic came up, I thought I would spend more time on scams. But as we see today, the clock is running out of time, or I am running out of time. And also in my studying and preparation, I also feel like I kind of ran out of time, and so I don't have as much stuff on scams, but I do want to cover that a little bit. What is a scam? Scams are tricks where bad people try to steal your money or personal information. They can happen by phone, email, text, mail, or even in person. Scammers are very good at sounding nice, official, or urgent. They often target seniors because many of us seniors have savings accounts or own our own homes, and we like to help others. And they prey on that. The nicest people are the easiest ones to fall for scams. And I have spent some time thinking, how can I, in short, give you a little foundation on scam awareness? I know I had that survey out a couple months ago, and there was quite a few questions in there that people asked, well, how can I identify or recognize or a scam? This is where I wish I would have spent more time in actually coming up with a good answer. You are your own biggest weakness. The user is his own biggest weakness. Most scams, ransomware, phishing attacks, some of those things, they come in because of user error. I wasn't paying attention, I got that email, I clicked on that link, and then I realized, oh, that was actually, I shouldn't have clicked on that. Well, by now you're probably too late. Phishing scams, written with PH, but it means phishing. It's like you go fishing. And that has to do with phishing for information. And you have to realize that scammers do not care about truth. Some of us, Christian people, have a hard time comprehending how much people are willing to lie. They will make up absolutely any story that could be convincing to somebody to start sharing information. Or obviously at the end they want money, but so this last week we got quite a few emails at a company that I work about, here's a project for you to quote. We're building a 100-room apartment or whatever it was, I can't remember, 160,000 square feet, or many of you have seen that email come around. And then click on this link to quote the project. Well, you're a guy that, I don't know, whatever your job is, but your job is not quoting for big commercial projects, and you get this email, you should know that this is not normal. I'm not the one that should be getting this. That's a red flag. Now, where I can see, if you're in the contracting business where you do big commercial buildings and you get an email like this, I could forgive you for clicking on that link because this is right up your alley. This is exactly what you do. But if it doesn't fit what you normally do, beware. Romance scams. I don't know how many of us like to be on online dating sites. I am very okay if none of us are. I don't know, I'm just not a fan. I cannot say that they're wrong. It's just not my style. But that's where a lot of these romance scams come from. They come in other ways. Random text message like, hey, how are you? My name is Elsie. Are you able to talk? Or, I get these all the time, quite regularly. Just, hi, how are you? No name, nothing, just, hi, how are you? How do you respond to that? The people that I love and care, they're in my contacts, and they will show their name. I know who they are. I usually give them one chance. Well, often I don't even do that because there are just way too many. I already know they're just not of my interest. But if I'm legitimately uncertain whether they are actually needing something, then I will give them one chance, and it's like, what's your name and what do you need? If there's anything weird about their response, I block them and that's it. If you get a new phone and you want to prank me and send me with a new number, you get the same treatment. You're blocked. That has happened. And you know, maybe 6 months later, once you come begging on your hands and knees, then maybe I'll unblock you again. Who knows? The romance scam. So how do they work? You find this great person that you think you like on somewhere. You start texting back and forth, messaging back and forth. Give it a few weeks. Depends how fast it goes. They will play the game. They will probably be dating 30 other people at the same time, which you obviously don't know. And these people are usually in a different country somewhere, and then when you want to go visit your special friend, they always have some kind of excuse why it doesn't work for them to come to you and why it's not appropriate or good timing for you to go visit them. These things happen. And then give it a few months, once you're really kind of getting attached, then all of a sudden they'll say, hey, I had an accident here, I need $200. Well, hey, if your girlfriend needs $200 and she's actually in a crisis right now, you would send her $200, wouldn't you? That will go on. They will juice you out of money as long as you send them money. And they have AI to help them write these nice stories that are believable. They may not speak a word in English, but you would never know, because AI can translate really well. That's how romance scams works. It boggles my mind how many people fall for it, but I hope in our circles that is not the case. Oh, I keep running ahead of myself here. The grandpa-grandma emergency scam. Now this is where AI becomes very handy for the scammers. You know how easy it was to grab a voice, a photo? Imagine this. Somebody grabs my voice off of my YouTube preaching, takes 30 seconds out of it, trains their AI model, takes them 2 minutes. Then they send a message to my wife, and the message says something like this, in my voice. Hey, I had an accident. I lost my phone. I'm using the other person's phone, a neighbor phone or whatever. I'm okay, but I will need you to send me some money to get me out of this. The police will call you and just follow their instructions. It's my voice. Gets the adrenaline up right away. What's going on? And sure enough, 2 minutes later, the cops call her and they confirm everything I said. The cops, in case you miss it, are the scammers. And I have just told her, supposedly, to follow the instructions. Faithful wife follows her instructions. This happens. And I've read stories, and I was in Chicken Chef, that's already a couple years ago. I heard 2 elderly women talking as they walked by my table. They talked exactly about this. They said, yeah, they had that, and you couldn't tell the difference. There's a story I read about this. The mother was interviewed after the fact. She had lost a bunch of money. And she's like, yeah, it sounded like my daughter. Like there was nothing that sounded off. It sounded 100% like my daughter. I know my daughter. I know her voice. That was her voice. That's what AI can do. And so what I tell my wife in person, if you ever get a message from me, even a live phone call, even a video call that asks for money, hang up and call my phone. Hang up and call my phone. This one lady, her daughter was in school, totally fine, but in that message, she apparently had an accident and was threatened to be kidnapped if she couldn't pay for the damages, right on the spot. And most of us would right away know that is fishy, like, no, nobody does that. You know, threaten to kidnap somebody for not paying on the spot for an accident. But sometimes, anyways, they really like to target older people. They like to be grandma, grandpa because it's a little further removed. Most grandparents don't talk to their grandchildren every day, so they won't recognize if the voice has a little glitch or something, or they speak differently. I read one story where this happened in Steinbach, where the guy said, the only thing that tipped me off was he called me grandpa. Because that grandson never calls me grandpa. I think they had like a Ukrainian name or something. They used an Opa or something like that. They had a different name. And so that tipped me off. That's the only thing that saved him. He said, it was my grandson, everything, but he called me a name that he never calls me. Now people are saying you should have passwords or passcodes, that when somebody calls something like this, then ask them a question, the secret code question, to see if they know that. And there's things like this. I know it's weird if your wife calls you and says, hey, and then you start asking her questions. Well, hey, what did we do on our first date? Or what's your mother's grandmother's favorite color? Or, hey, I just hate people losing money to stuff like that. Extortion scams. Extortion means you force money out of somebody. And if you take the word extortion and put an S in front of it, for you adults, you know what I'm talking about. That stuff happens. It has happened in this side of Arborg. How this works is you get a random text message, and this generally targets teenagers. And hopefully our teenagers, our children, our youth are mature, wise, and strong. Start a communication via text message, usually late at night, and then hey, you want to see a picture? Then they send a picture. Hey, you send a picture. By now, you should have long stopped. You should have blocked and gone away. But it can happen in weak moments or when you're not living in victory. All of a sudden, something like this, people like us can fall for. Once the scammer, which you thought was a pretty girl, it's probably a 40-year-old male somewhere in Nigeria, has a photo of you that is indecent, suddenly the conversation changes completely. Look at this picture you just sent me. You're going to give me $200 or I'm going to send it to all your friends and your family. And then, if you don't believe him, they'll screenshot your Instagram profile where it shows who all your friends are. Yeah, you're going to send me that money or I'm sending it to all these people. And your life is going to be over. I mean, what do you think that's going to do to your reputation? They blackmail you. I mean, they blackmail you to no end. This has happened on this side of Ardwick. Suddenly, young men that go to church, that are Christian, but they had a weak moment. There's one case, this is probably rare, but there was a case in the US where this happened, and the scammer convinced the individual to commit suicide. I don't quite understand why a humiliation like that would necessarily drive me to suicide. I can understand that that would be a massive hit to my reputation, but that I would be one that would want to go and just end it like that I don't quite see. But the case that happened not far from here, that son, that boy, that teenager, thank God, had a good enough relationship with his dad that he went to his dad and confessed and said what happened and trusted him. But he came to his dad with those words too. It's like, Dad, my life is over. I'm done. I got to kill myself. Something like that. I forget the exact wording, but it does something to a young man when, and ladies too, blackmail like that. I don't want to think this is very common. Why do I bring this up? Parents, please, have a relationship with your children. And anybody, if you ever come into this, get help. Yes, it's humiliating. Yes, it's embarrassing. I get it. Some of these, they will send money. You'll send them $200 to not have it spread. Well, you know, tomorrow they'll be back and say, oh, actually, I need another $500 that I'm going to share it again. There's no end. They will juice you out of money until you give up. Sometimes their threats are vain. Sometimes they won't do anything, but sometimes they can. Phone calls. If they call you and say your computer has a problem, hang up. If you didn't ask for that phone call, you don't need them. Ransomware, I think we're familiar with that for the most part, or maybe we're not. Again, most ransomware is human error. If you have scam issues, you've been scammed or you've fallen for scams and you're wondering what to do, or you've been hacked, you've allowed somebody on your computer you shouldn't have, you don't know what to do, write this down. AskLeo.com. He has a lot of resources. He's been a Microsoft developer, or worked for Microsoft many years now, hasn't for many years already, but he has a lot of stuff on his website. Let's see. I gotta finish this up here. Best scam prevention is, I use strong passwords, but honestly that's not the best one. The best one is yourself. You're your biggest weakness, you're also your biggest strength. Be suspicious, be skeptical. Use strong passwords, use a password manager. I have passwords. I only know one password that I have. I mean, I know a few at work too, but I have a long password and a password manager, and then the password manager has passwords, and all my different accounts, they all have completely unique passwords. I don't share passwords from one account to the other, and they're all like 25 or whatever characters long, just a bunch of random text. Those passwords are hard to crack. I know it's inconvenient, but that's where password managers can be really helpful. Be skeptical and suspicious. Inform your parents. But don't freak them out. Like, bottom line is just don't ever send somebody money on a first phone call, ever. Unless you also talk to them in person and you know who they are and you already have this going before the phone call. That would be basically, I guess, my bottom line on that part. Okay, wrap up time. It's 9 o'clock, almost. Couple of things about AI. I thought this was really good. I came across this, I can't remember who said this. If you want to know whether your AI use is good or bad, here's 4 points. AI should enhance human connection. If it does, good. It should enhance human creativity. It should enhance human capability. It should enhance human judgment. If it does not do any of these 4, then you're using it wrong, and it's not good. It's a little bit of a guideline or a checklist, you might call it. I think this comes from the same guy that was in the first video that talks about digitizing humans. To wrap this up, I want to take our minds off of AI. AI is a technology. It's powerful. We need to be careful with it. But we should not be afraid. Greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. In fact, I do want to share some scripture verses. Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereto according to thy word. In my studies through this AI stuff, I know my family is so ready for me to be done with this. I am so ready to be done with this. I want to study something else for a change. I just take my Bible and just kind of skim through the New Testament. And just here and there, I'm reading verses. A lot of Paul's letters. We have to know the scripture. We have to live out the scripture. And then use AI where we can to help do that. We need to know our calling. We need to know our mission. And then where we can and where AI helps accomplish our mission, awesome, use it, do it. But if it becomes a burden and a distraction and a hindrance, then we need to look at that. John 16:33, these things have I spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Seriously, Jesus has overcome the world. Yes, AI is powerful, and yes, we can get this whole topic about the end times and Revelation and how AI fits into all that, and does it fit into there, and that will have to be a topic for another day. Real briefly, because you're all wondering, AI is not the Antichrist. But I think the Antichrist will use whatever is the best technology at that time to use, possibly AI. If there's something better that's more powerful, they will use whatever is more powerful, would be my assumption. That's just my opinion. Colossians 1:16, for by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. Does this apply to AI? There you go. Well, God didn't make the AI, but by him all things consist. If God didn't create the principles in the technology, that the technology even works, it wouldn't exist. And what does he say here? All things were created by him and for him. That's where I want to highlight. It's for him. How we use AI, let's use it for Christ. Let's use it to build his kingdom and to encourage each other. John 14:27, I got about 3 more slides here. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. We can talk about all kinds of doomsday stuff about AI and how scary it can be and what it might all mean. You know what? Don't worry. God is bigger. Jesus said, peace, not as the world gives, but as Christ gives. 2 Timothy 2:15, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needs not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. AI is not a spirit, and AI is not always truthful. So if you want to worship God, you don't do that through AI. If you want to worship God, you do that through Spirit and in truth. Finally, I wanted to end in heaven. This world can be troublous, it can be dirty, it can be confusing, it can be tribulation and trouble and struggle and questions but you know what? Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him. For the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready. Have you made yourself ready? Are you ready for the holy marriage with Jesus Christ in heaven? And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the linen is the righteousness of saints. That's my dream. That's my prayer. I'm looking forward to that day. Let's keep our priorities straight. Let's keep our goal. Let's keep our mission. Let's keep Jesus Christ center and strive and seek for him. Please stand for prayer. Father, we come to you this evening. God, I pray the words that I have spoken, that you would take those and bring them to the hearts of each one here to minister to them in a way that they need it tonight. God, I pray that you would plant in us a vision, a passion to make ourselves ready as that bride, as that wife that Revelation talks about here. That we could be ready for that marriage, that we could be enthralled and enraptured and captivated by your presence and by your holiness and by your purity. God, we want to worship you in spirit and in truth. I pray that each one of us, as we go from here, that we would have a renewed vision to be passionate about Christ and the things that distract, to leave them behind. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.